We have two items. First item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item of council reporting out of closed session is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Someone like to move it? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Comments or questions? Councillor Gardner. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As there are some residents waiting to hear the decision out of closed session, how are they going to know?
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't aware of any residents, but at this time they won't be aware, as it was a closed session deliberation. At some point, the LPAP proceedings will be public, I believe. So if they are tuned into that, they would know then. But it won't be through my office anytime soon.
Councillor.
So we're not allowed to report out of closed session what the decision is?
Not until there's a ruling. It's just, we did the same thing with the Metropolitan Square. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Clerk, record vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the first item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys hasn't joined us yet. Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
No.
And Councillor Gallo?
No.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Second item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second item of council reporting out of closed session is just to receive the report.
Someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Kim. Comments, questions? Mr. Clerk, record a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the second item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys still not here. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
And Councillor Gilliland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Confirming bylaw. Someone like to move that? Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Kim. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Mr. Clerk, time is 7:05. I'll call this general committee meeting to order. Procedural notes. This meeting will be held electronically as per section 19(1) of the town's procedural bylaw number 6228-19 as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Comments or questions? Call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no community presentations. We have no delegations at this time. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. No delegations.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Would someone like to move to approve the consent agenda? We have one item on it, 6.1. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland, you have a question on the consent agenda? No? Oh, I thought you had your hand up for a question.
I did, but I meant for the next items.
Oh, for the next item. Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Okay. Call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Advisory committee meeting minutes. Any comments or questions on those? Did anyone want to pull any of them? Councillor Gilliland, is it a question or did you want to pull it?
I did have a comment and I'd like to pull it. It's 7.2, please.
7.2. Okay. Councillor Gallo, did you want to pull something or just have a quick question?
It's actually just a correction on 7.1. I believe Councillor Humphreys and I were attendees at that meeting, and the minutes don't show that.
Okay, thank you. And you are correct. You both were there. Mr. Clerk, can we correct those?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. No need for a motion. We'll take that as administrative correction.
Thank you. Are we good, Councillor Gallo? Thank you. Councillor Gilliland? Still had your hand still up from previously. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, from previous.
Thank you. So could I get a motion then to approve 7.1 and 7.3 from the advisory committee meeting minutes? Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Humphreys. Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Move to items requiring discussion. We will start with 7.2. The Environmental Advisory Committee meeting minutes of January 25th, 2021. The recommendation is that the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting minutes of January 25th, 2021 be received for information. Councillor Gilliland, did you want to move that?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Someone like to second that? Councillor Humphreys, thank you. Councillor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Thank you. First, I just want to say what a great first meeting that we had to kick off the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting. I was very excited to get started on this, and there was a lot of great things on the agenda. In fact, we had to defer some to the next meeting, so I'm really grateful that this did go forward. So I just want to thank Council for putting this through with my motion, and staff and all your hard work and presenting all this information. And I know it's going to do good for us down the road. There was one delegation I wanted to kind of bring to light, and then there was a young youth who had brought forward some information about marker recycling and about all the importance of or the impact and the importance of recycling, and how some municipalities may or may not be able to endeavor in this initiative. But I thought, like, why not look into this? So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, I was wondering if staff could at least look into this. I think I forwarded you the delegation presentation, and at least let us know if that's something that would be feasible. Is that something that you could look into?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. Yeah, we'd be happy to, as I said in the email. The other thing was you were also looking at printer ink, so or printer cartridges. That was the other item. So I'm going to ask staff to look into both of those things.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I think I was also mentioning, I know that we do like an electronic, and I think we're in a process of a battery return. I'm not so certain. Is that correct, Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've had several very successful electronic recycling programs, and so that is ongoing. Batteries, we've started. However, we haven't gone into a full public campaign. We do have battery recycling, but we would like to be able to do that at each residence and provide that opportunity. And we are working with with GFL in order to provide that service.
Councillor?
Perfect. So I guess my main goal initiative here is if there was some sort of an ongoing recycling program within the town where the residents of Aurora kind of automatically knew, oh, I know where I can take that printer, or oh, I know where I can take my batteries, and it doesn't have to be a specific day that they have to wait to actually drop these off. I think what happens is that, especially with batteries, you're throwing out a couple here, a couple there, or markers for that matter from the delegate, and they just end up either recycling if they can in their own blue box, or just throwing them out just because people are just actually not holding on to these 2 or 4 batteries or whatnot. So I do think that there's some opportunity here, and then hopefully it could be something that people always know that the town's there to back up. Maybe there's some sponsorship opportunities for these recycling programs as well. So who knows? So I look forward to what you can report back, Mr. Downey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions on this one? Call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed, that carries. 8.1, Green Fleet Action Plan. Recommendation 1, that report number OPS 21-006 be received, and 2, that council endorse the Green Fleet Action Plan subject to budgetary implications. Would someone like to move the recommendations? Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Comments or questions on this item? Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And just through you to, I'm not sure who, on page 4 of 9 of the report, so it's I think 24 of our agenda, it speaks to the EV charging stations, and it says that the 2 existing EV charging stations at Town Hall and Aurora Community Center will be removed under this expansion scenario, as they are not on a network and cannot be set up for a user fee. These 2 EV chargers will be relocated at the JOC yard for fleet-only use and will be utilized initially by the new hybrid SUVs. Can someone explain to me the rationale behind that? They're at least the one at Town Hall is well used by residents. Why can we not just update those 2? To me, it's a service level issue that we have to, that the public have access to, and that are in good locations, and we're recommending to remove them and only have fleet only use of the new ones at the JOC.
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to refer this to Mr. Waters. It was actually coming from his staff.
Well, thank you. Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. My understanding is we are trying to access public money to increase the number of EV charging stations. We will be bringing a report forward to you within the next month or so to describe a process and a policy for implementing EV charging stations.
Councillor?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, I look forward to seeing that. However, I don't agree, at least in this report, to remove those 2, to remove them and put them in the JOC and for the sole use of fleet. That to me doesn't make sense. I'm happy to have more at the JOC, but it doesn't make sense to remove the ones that the public has access to. So if that's a strategy, if there's something else that's happening, I'm happy to hear it.
I'll go to our CEO to answer that. I see he's popped on. I'm assuming he wants to speak.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll confirm this later, but I believe the reference to removing the ones at Town Hall are because they do not support a user pay system. So they would be moved to the JOC where we're going to be using it for our own vehicles. But the other infrastructure that we'd put in the community would simply recapture the cost of the actual electricity, but provide the station. I'll confirm that, but I believe that's what's happening with those ones at Town Hall. So there will be some there. They'll just be like all the other standardized ones where you'll pay for your actual electricity that you're using.
Councillor?
And I'm fine with that. If that's the case, I'm fine with that. Obviously, the way it's written, it felt like we were taking those away, moving them to JOC and not replacing them. But if we are replacing them, then that's fine.
Thank you. Mr. CEO, if you can find out for us, that'd be great. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Gallo bringing that up and clarifying that. I was wondering that myself. The additional question I have really has to do around the GPS outfitting. So I guess through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, it talks about the costs associated with it, both capital and the increase in operating to outfit the fleet and put GPS. But you know, I guess I just want to understand the benefit. You know, I mean, it's clear. You know, in terms of the cost, you've laid that out, and every year we're going to see an incremental operating cost of $40,000. But you know, it alludes to some efficiencies by using the data to, you know, evaluate routes and so forth. But have we done any metrics around what we could potentially save, just so I can look at it from a cost benefit analysis perspective and understand what this investment could potentially return back to the organization?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That's a great question. No, we have not done the investigation as to how much money we could save because we don't know how much of an issue it is. We do know that we could do much better at running efficient routes, and it will have an impact. We just don't know whether that's a small impact or a large impact. So once we have better data, then we can come back to council and give you a much clearer understanding of some of the savings that would be involved.
Councilor?
Through you to Mr. Downey again. So you think that once this is installed, we could do some sort of tracking along the way so that you could come back to council at some point and update us on, you know, what the benefit of doing this is, both from an efficiency perspective and or being able to save the organization a few dollars?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. That's our intention. We know that we are not running the most efficient routes, no matter what department it might be. And so we are looking for efficiencies. And then once we have those, we will be reporting back to council on some of the savings that we've identified as a result of this program.
Councilor?
Thank you. You know, I would like to see that data at some point. You know, we've had conversations in the past, be it LED lights or other initiatives that we've taken on. They always come with a capital cost. And the belief is that we're doing so for a variety of reasons, but one of which is to generate efficiencies and savings. And so I look forward to seeing that report at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Kim?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Waters or Mr. Downey. I remember several years ago when electric vehicles were just starting out and coming into the mainstream. The biggest challenge was for them to build infrastructure like charging stations to want to incent the public to purchase the cars. And so the responsibility, like any other waste management discussion that we have, is the producer has the responsibility. So now I'm finding that with this report and the reports that are out elsewhere, is that the responsibility is now in the hands of government. So can either of you clarify? I hear messages that the producers are building these infrastructure and these charging stations, and yet here we are trying to find grant money and spending our own capital to build these charging stations. So who is ultimately responsible, or is it really just there's no clear-cut line?
Mr. Downey?
So I'll take a stab at it. I don't know if Dave wants to jump in or not, but there isn't a clear-cut line. What we're looking at is trying to reduce greenhouse gases, and so that's the main reason that we are looking at electric vehicles and some of the infrastructure that's involved in them. But there doesn't seem to be anyone who is saying, this is the way it should actually be done, and being ultimately responsible for that.
Councilor?
Thank you. That's the general feeling I got, was that no one's really taking responsibility. And so we're just, whoever has the funds, they're just, whoever wants to do it is doing it. But thank you for your perspective, Mr. Downey.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gilliland?
Thank you. I just wanted to just point out how grateful I am for this report, and I support it fully. I love the direction that we're going. I am excited about the report for the EV stations as well, because I know that we have been working with, or at least ANCA's staff has been working closely with some other EV companies in order to service the town of Aurora. And I think it's a great step going forward to try and change those behaviors, like we had spoken before about trying to be more environmentally friendly in a different direction. This is one great way to reduce our emissions and with this green initiative. So I think that by us putting this foot forward really shows our initiative as a town, committing to our community energy plan as well and reducing those greenhouse gases. Also, which was great, I know that Tesla just announced as well that they're going to be releasing more affordable compact cars a lot earlier than they anticipated. So that's also something that I think is positive, that hopefully it'll come to Canada quickly as well. And I do foresee that there's going to be a bit more of a trend that way. And, you know, who knows, maybe hydrogen will be something that will be more accessible as well. I'm just really glad that we've had this initiative start probably a lot earlier than maybe some municipalities. So it really shows that, you know, we are stepping up. So Mr. Downey, thank you for all your hard work on this report.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this report, Mr. Downey. It's good to see, and I'm also very pleased to see that there's going to be an anti-idling policy introduced through the engineering division, so that we don't have a policy for the community, but we will have a policy for staff. Am I correct on that?
Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. Actually, we've been working really closely with engineering on many of these initiatives. And so, yes, we believe that we could do better in this. And we need to be leaders with regards to anti-idling and not simply impose that on the public, but see what we can't do about also identifying it for staff. So I think it's a great initiative, and applaud the efforts of our staff and Dave Waters' staff in trying to make this happen.
Councillor?
Thank you, and I agree. If we set the example, it'll be easier for the public to follow when we introduce a policy. Going back to the electric charging stations, and I think that we're hoping to have these charging stations that take 4 to 8 hours. Imagine they're more expensive, but it seems to make sense for efficiency. But with respect to providing charging stations for the public, the two that are going to remain at Town Hall but are going to be changed, does that cover the full cost? Are we taking into cost the cost of the actual charging stations? And if not, can we?
Mr. Downey?
Once again, Mr. Mayor, I'll refer that over to Mr. Waters.
Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that the policies or policy that will be coming out next month will deal with the rate for charging. What we're hoping to receive is some grant money to offset the cost, and then the charging rate will be what the market is charging now for electricity. So we'll try to make it as revenue neutral as possible.
Well, follow up through you, Mr. Mayor. So if we don't get the grant, can we think about how we actually can make it as revenue neutral as possible? Because, I mean, we are providing a service, and it would be nice if we could do it for absolutely free, but we're tight for money too. So maybe we could just defray it a bit, or you'll think on that. I can see you're nodding. Thank you. With respect to introducing the, is it biofuel, Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey? I see Mr. Downey.
Yes, that's correct.
Biodiesel blend? Now, you're very optimistic, Mr. Downey. And it does say that if we do that, the fuel filters are going to have to be changed more frequently, but that it's expected that is going to help extend the life of the machinery. So do you have anything to base that on?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as you know, we engaged a consultant on fleet management, and so that actually came out of that fleet management study, and they had identified some ideas with regards to fleet and some of the issues related to it. So that's where that information came from. I have no reason to doubt it. As you can appreciate, we're not into it at this point, and if I knew what all the problems were, I would tell you now, but I don't. I do know, however, that it will help reduce greenhouse gases, which is our goal.
Thank you. And I think you say here we might be able to extend that percentage at some point. Ballpark figure of the cost of the filters, or is that something that we'll know in the future?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have that number. I'm happy to provide that to you. I can talk to our fleet manager with regards to that, but I'm sorry, but I couldn't. I wouldn't want to guess.
Counselor?
Okay, it's not an important question, I guess, in that we have to do it if we're going to be getting an environmental plus. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, second time.
Thank you. And I just needed some clarity on the recommendation. So it's a report to receive, obviously, as well as the council endorsed the Green Fleet Action Plan subject to budgetary implications. So what exactly does it mean? In the plan, it has key objectives. Are we basically just agreeing to those high-level objectives at this point? Reduce demand and analyze data. Second, improve maintenance and management practices. Third, convert to alternative renewable low carbon fuels. Four, continue to provide efficient, cost-effective services. And five, educate and outreach initiatives.
Mr. Downey, do you want to answer? I would say yes, Councillor. Anything that has a budget attached to it would have to come back to us. But Mr. Downey, go ahead.
That's absolutely correct, Mr. Mayor. So anything we can do without a budget implication, we're going to move forward with. But if it has a budgetary implication, we would have to come back to council and get that budget approval. So we wanted to make sure that council was not approving some future budgetary items without the benefit of all the information related to that cost. So if it hasn't got a budget to it, we will move forward with it. If it does, then you will see it again.
Councillor?
Thank you. And then just the other question in terms of replacing bylaw vehicles, is there, as we know, we have an agreement with, I think, Georgina or sorry, East Gwillimbury and Newmarket or two other municipalities. Do we share the costs of those vehicles if they are changed into electric?
Mr. Downey? Or do you want to give that to Ms. Van Leeuwen, or?
It's all right, Tasha can answer, or I can. But the cost, Tasha can correct me, but the cost of those vehicles is part of that program. And so there's a shared responsibility for purchasing those vehicles.
Tasha, did you want to add to that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, the vehicles that are assigned to our partners were purchased by our partners, 100%. They paid for the capital cost.
Councillor?
My reference is if we move to electric vehicles, is it proportionally shared amongst our partners?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, again, they own the vehicle, so they would be purchasing a replacement vehicle.
Councillor?
That's fine, as long as it's shared equally amongst the partners or whoever owns the vehicle. That's all I was looking for. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland? Second time?
Yes, hold on, I'm just going to lower my hand. Hi. Thank you. I just another comment, and I forgot to touch on it because I know I mentioned Tesla. But I do know that GM and Ford have kind of ramped up to compete as well in this market, which holds kind of the majority of our fleet. And I understand that they've announced this early in February. They're going to release as early as 2022 the F-150. So I'm wondering through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, does this help us keep a pulse and moving forward with this green fleet program a lot quicker than maybe anticipated when we first started investigating this report and what we can do in this area or this sector?
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I love the competition. So this is good news, and the more people who are getting into it, the better. And hopefully the price point will drop. As you know, we are paying a premium at this point, so we are looking forward to the competition.
Councillor?
Thank you. And have you, through Mr. Mayor, Mr. Johnny, have you heard, I noticed in your report, you were mentioning high uses, either your SUVs or your light vehicles, but also your heavy equipment. So have you done any research as to like maybe at what point that might be available for us to make an investment in if it were to come available? Have you been kind of watching or keeping a pulse on that as well?
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so the light duty vehicles are, as you know, pretty well on the market, and they're moving forward with that. The heavier duty vehicles are lagging behind. However, as you may or may not know, York Region Transit is looking at electric buses, and a lot of them are running in the Newmarket area. So we know that there are strides being moved forward with regards to heavier duty vehicles. However, we don't feel there's a practical solution at this point. However, that doesn't mean there wouldn't be something in the future.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I stand corrected. I meant the heavy duty, like the equipment. When I look at your percentage of your fleet assets and the amount of pollution, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm wrong. Your light duty was your most, and then next was your medium vehicles. So how is the comparator, is what it's in the market? Are we okay with that? Is there enough out there in order to compensate for what we're trying to achieve here?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our light duty is our biggest issue, and so there is a market out there. So we know that we can make a fairly major difference in that area. However, that does not mean that we stop there. We are going to try to look at all aspects of our fleet, but the light duty vehicles have the biggest impact, and they are, without a doubt, the furthest along in the market.
Councillor?
Okay, perfect. So with these new announcements with Ford and GM, then obviously that's good news moving forward. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you tell me what it means under the Green Fleet, develop a long-term Green Fleet plan with an internal sponsor and support? Do you mean, what do you mean by that, please?
Mr. Downey? Councillor, which page is that on? Just
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly
Page
what I was
two.
going to ask.
pardon?
Page 2.
It's
two?
on page 2 under background, and it is the first bullet under background.
Thank you. You got that, Mr. Downey?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, I do. To you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not quite sure. So I will have to get back to you, Councillor Gardner, and give you a more full explanation of what we are mean by internal sponsor.
Thank you. I've never seen that terminology. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Downey, thanks for the report. Actually, I have one question. Last term, we brought up the program by Tesla. I know that they were working with restaurants and hotels, resorts, shops to install charge points. And then they started working with municipalities directly. And I think we asked as a council for us to look into if this would be something of interest for us, if we could get those charge points for free, as they were that was the program that they were providing. Did we look into that? And if so, did it not meet our expectations or what we were looking for? And or are they still providing that program at this point? No.
Through Mr. Mayor, I hate to do this, but Dave, it's actually Mr. Waters,
Okay, Mr. Waters.
and his staff that are working on those charging stations.
Yeah, Mr. Waters.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll have to speak to staff and provide a response for you. I wasn't aware of that.
Okay. And that's why I asked Mr. Downey, because you weren't here last term, so you wouldn't have known that we asked that. So yeah, if you could look into that, I think it would be great for us to, obviously, if we can provide charge points at no cost to the municipality and to the residents, I think that's great. You know, we just end up paying for the electricity, and so I think that was some of the concerns, is how much do these stations actually cost. So if we can remove that cost, then that's great. So if we can look into that, I would appreciate that. And then I just want, I mean, I'm glad that we're moving in this direction as well. And I just let everyone know, if they don't know, is that York Region did move forward in 2019 and purchased 6 electric buses. And so they're starting to change over and bring in electric buses into the fleet. And there's 2 routes that they're currently being used on. So if anyone needs more information on that, I'll get them that information. But I just wanted to make mention of that. But it's great that we're moving in this direction as well. So that's it. Any other comments or questions? Councillor, you spoke twice. Sorry.
It was just to your Tesla thing. I kind of know a little bit of an answer on that,
Well,
if I may.
you did speak twice, so I get it, but we'll maybe we can speak to it after, or you can speak to it at council if we pull it. How's that?
Sure.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next, we have 8.2, winter roads maintenance. 1, that report number OPS 21-007 be received. 2, that the current winter maintenance service level standards remain unchanged. 3, that upon the conclusion of the current winter roads maintenance contract in April of 2021, the town enter into a new contract for the delivery of road winter maintenance for 4 of the town's road plow routes. And that when 1 additional winter roads maintenance route is implemented, it be conducted in-house by the Operational Services Department. And 5, that contracted vehicles do not exceed 8 model years of age at any time during the life of the contract. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. Comments or questions on this item? Councillor Gardner, you got your hand up for this one?
I do.
Go ahead.
I noticed that this comes to us from Mr. Tree. When I was first on council, Mr. Tree was celebrating his 25th year. Before you know, he's going to be at 50. Anyway, thanks, Mr. Tree, Mr. Downey, if you would. That's a very good report. There's only one thing I don't agree with here, and that is renewing the contract, deciding to renew the contract at this point. I'm wondering if we might find some more efficiencies. And I noticed that sometimes our service level is more than it needs to be. So I would just be more comfortable not renewing it at this point, although I understand from the report that it takes quite a lot of time to get this in place. So I'll pose my question to you, Mr. Downey. I was walking with a senior and we were watching on a crescent the smaller snowplow clear the road and build up that snow mound in the middle of the crescent. And she found it interesting. It was, it took maybe 7 or 8 plows for that smaller plow to build up the snow mountain. And then just after it was finishing, one of our large plows that probably clears the width of 2 roads, road lengths at a time, car lengths at a time, car widths at a time, came around, and I guess they didn't want to back up. They came around and they cleared the 2 roads that the other plow had been working on, just in the sweep of going around the crescent. So I was thinking about it, and I was going to call you today, Mr. Downey, but I thought you might be busy. But that seemed to me to be inefficient. Now, I don't know if it's a matter of the large plow would be carrying too much snow as it went around the crescent. Perhaps you could comment on that, or you could find out about that. And the other thing that I noticed has happened with crescents, the snow mound is built up and it melts and it gets built up again. And yet at some point it's completely cleared. And to me, that would seem like unnecessary work. I don't know how many crescents we have. And the third point to the crescents is the amount of road that's cleared is easily 2 car widths, if not even some left for parking. So in an instance like that, it could just be a roundabout, go in one direction. It only services 4 or 6 homes. So I'm thinking of that in the terms of small efficiencies that might save us on a road contract. Do you have any comment on this?
Mr. Downey?
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, a lot of questions there. First of all, never too busy to talk to a member of council, so please feel free to call anytime. So the operation you saw is a new operation that we had brought in when actually Jim and I took over the operation. And the smaller plow is actually operated by our park staff and not our road staff. We were getting several complaints, and it wasn't about I don't think it's a crescent. I think it's a cul-de-sac you're talking about. Is
Yes,
it not?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. Fair enough. So, and so we came up with a new cul-de-sac program because that was one of our areas where we had the most complaints about snow being dumped in people's driveways and cul-de-sacs, and trying to find a way of clearing the road and yet not leaving such big windrows, and clearing the snow out of that cul-de-sac with a big truck was not very efficient. So what we do is with the large plow, we come in and plow the road, and then with the smaller plows, we come in and actually clean up the area so that there isn't as much snow deposit in the end of the driveways for the cul-de-sacs. And we then pile that much of that snow in an area of the cul-de-sac that doesn't cause as much of a problem, whether that's in the center or off to the edge or wherever. All depends on the cul-de-sac. What we then do is then, as time permits, we will then go in and remove the snow from the cul-de-sac because we need snow storage areas. We need to be prepared for the next storm. So in fact, you might have seen some snow plows out on Valentine's Day. And we were out clearing some areas to make sure that we knew a storm was coming. We wanted to make sure that there was room in our system in order to handle that snow. So that's why you will see smaller pieces of equipment in the cul-de-sacs. And that's why you will see us removing snow from those cul-de-sacs in preparation for the next storm. And from our perspective, the complaints from the people who live in those cul-de-sacs, and you're right, there's not very many people, but they can be fairly vocal, has gone down dramatically.
Council?
Thank you. I think there's probably not very much interest in council to listen to this, so I will take it offline. But first of all, I thought you might be a little busy today, so that's why I didn't call you. The second question I have is, when the sidewalk plow plows the sidewalk, it does get most of the snow off, but then the sidewalk remains quite icy. I mean, depending on the weather, but I noticed that. So it's almost easier in some areas to walk on the road, or safer.
Councilors, point of order?
Yes.
Councilor
Yes, I just had a point of clarity. I believe we're just talking about road maintenance only, not sidewalks at all.
Okay, so I'll take that offline as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Thompson?
I guess just I want to clarify something. Councilor Gardner's comment just made me think about something. With regards to the motion in front of us, my understanding of the third clause was that while we are saying to extend the contract, we're not necessarily saying to extend it with the particular vendor we're using now, that we'd still go out to the market. If I can get some clarity from either Mr. Downey or Mayo.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. We would go to public tender. It may end up being exactly the same vendor, but not necessarily.
Councilor?
And thank you, I appreciate it, because I did read in the report where the current vendor offering a savings, but it also said at the same time staff did not necessarily recommend that. So I just wanted to be clear that while council may be approving to go back out to tender so that we extend a contract with 4 routes. Again, we're going to use our best practices and see what best price we can get. I guess my other question through you to Mr. Downey is, Downey, I really appreciate the conversation we had and Jim Tree's explanation with regards to the questions around, 5th route, why we decided to take that in-house, why we've not decided to take any more of those 4 routes in-house and continue to use a contractor. I don't know if you want to share that response with everybody. I mean, I can certainly summarize it, but I just thought that it was good information, both from a cost perspective as well as a service perspective, and thought perhaps Solid Council would like to hear it.
Mr. Downey?
Certainly. Councillor Thompson came forward with some questions with regards to some information from the report and wanted some information based on whether we had in-house service or whether we had contracted service, and why are we looking at not maybe weaning ourselves off the contractor and moving completely in-house, and what were the cost implications of doing both. So we provided some costing information, but it's not only costing that is a consideration here, but also service. And we find that having a level of contracted service within the roads provides us with a bit of a buffer for any issues that may arise as a result of any labor unrest that we may have, any inability to provide service. The contractor is there to provide road maintenance during those periods of time. So we felt that it was a great blend of both providing public sector as well as private sector service to the clearing of our roads. It's a service that it's a system that we find works really, really well. We have been working really hard with our contractor to deal with service levels. I think that we identify better as a public sector, with providing service, whereas the private sector is more interested in making sure that the work gets done, but we deal with the service issues. And we work really hard to make sure that our contractor is providing the same level of service as our staff, and that's worked really, really well for us, and we were very satisfied with that with this contractor. But we don't believe that it's a benefit to the municipality to wean ourselves off completely from that contracted service.
Councillor?
Thanks, Mr. Downey. The comments and the conversation really stemmed out of the matrix box they have in the report, which talked about the fact that staff contribute to a higher value and quality work. And certainly, we always want to provide the best for our residents. And so, conversations with Mr. Downey and Mr. Tree sort of elaborated on that. And really, the proposal they put forward tonight offers the best balance, in their opinion, between value and consistency of service. And I just appreciated the additional information. I thought it was great. And as always, Jim Tree is such a wealth of knowledge. It's always a treat to speak with him. So appreciate the additional work, Mr. Downey, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. And just along those lines, and the financial implications of that additional route, maybe between now and council, I'll also speak to Mr. Tree, but I guess for now, there's $325,000 capital expenditure to have that extra route and an extra truck, 20 kilometers of roadway, and an ongoing operational cost of about $90,000. And the total contract for the 4 routes is $325,000. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around the cost benefit analysis, removing the concept of our staff and better quality staff and all of that. I'd like to get a better sense of, spending $325,000 versus whatever it costs for an extra route by the contractor.
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so we provided those costings. We don't see that happening for the next few years. So that's not something that we're going to be bringing probably even to this term of council, but more than likely to the next term of council. We just wanted to give some metrics with regards to those costs. Some of the savings that we are looking at, or some of the changes that we want to make in this contract, has to do with the years, how old the trucks are that are providing that service. And the previous contract called for newer vehicles, and that means that we end up through this contract actually paying for those newer vehicles. And so when you take into the metrics the cost of us paying for those contracted vehicles over the period of the contract, as opposed to us buying a vehicle and having it for 10 years, those metrics match out fairly equally. The major difference is in the cost of having staff operate that vehicle. And there are benefits to both the contractor as well as staff, in that the contracted service may be less. However, you will get perhaps better service and work other than snow plowing from that staff person, because as you know, if you're not plowing snow, you're off doing other work. Whereas with a contractor, if they're not plowing snow, they're not doing any other work for the town. So all of that information will be provided to council when we are looking at expanding the route, and council will more than likely have an opportunity to either do that in-house or as an added element of the existing contract.
Councillor?
And that's fine. I know it's not happening now, but it is part of one of the recommendations, recommendation 4, that we add a route and that it's done in-house, I guess, prematurely, or, if it's 3 years down the road, are we giving authority now to have that done? I'm just, if it's not happening in the next 5 years, why are we approving it now, I guess is the question.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a fair question. We are not asking for council to commit to providing the 12th route in-house. We are giving you our recommendation. That's what should happen, but we are not asking for budget approval of that. And at the time when we do move to that 12th route, I believe, just as you have in the report here today, you should have options available to you to consider, whether that's in-house or whether that's a contracted service, or whether we do it at all and maybe make a modification to the service level. There's a number of different options we can look at. So we are not asking for a commitment to council at this point, other than we are setting the table and telling council we are going to be looking at a 12th route, and we need to make a decision at some point.
Councillor?
Okay, I mean, I'm fine with number 4 because it does say that when one route, it's not saying to do it now. So I'm in support of it, and thanks for all the work.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to, much of what I would like to say has been said. I just wanted to thank Mr. Downey and Mr. Tree for the hard work. It's not easy. What I have noticed, and I think we've heard around the table, is, the comprehensive review of what's out there from a service level perspective, where we want to go, the planning of the additional route. I think it's the right thing to do. The town expects this type of service. It's extremely visible. It's what everyone notices, and I think we need to make sure it's top notch. And I want to thank you very much. It's not easy what you do, and I personally have seen great improvements since you taken over, Mr. Downey and Mr. Tree, and just keep up the great work. I'm looking forward for this proposal to move forward ahead and keep thinking the future. Again, I love the review, and I think that's, again, really important for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, first time.
Thank you. Oops. Yeah, I'm on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Downey. The other thing I wanted to kind of point out with, I guess, some of the advantages of doing in-house is the maintenance of the vehicle. So by us slowly taking over the vehicle, we in turn have control of the maintenance of it. And so the longevity of that vehicle ends up being, I'm not going to say that they don't taking care of it, but we have that control of making sure that, you know, we get as much use as we can of that vehicle, because you know the standard and the service level that we take in order to make sure that they're being maintained properly. Correct?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, couldn't have said it better. So absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect. I just knew that was like something I think we had talked about in the past, and I was just writing down all the positives as to taking it in-house. But there is one thing that, you know, we didn't mention. I don't know if you would like to hear this, but you know, who knows, if we find enough savings down the road and it does become more in-house, you know, maybe we'll retable that window clearing. Oops, I said that. That's all. Oh, and one last thing is that I did want to kind of mention, I did send an email to you, Mr. Downey, and you forwarded it to staff that there was some great compliments in your service level. And specific to the Crescents, I know that Miss Wendy Gardner, Councillor Gardner had mentioned about that, and it was just kind of very time that, you know, there was a social media post commending how great of a job that you guys were doing and taking care of going around these Crescents and making sure the snow was not 2 or 3 feet high in front of other people's driveways. So it really does show that you guys are taking that extra step in order to ensure that we increase our service level around those specific areas. So I want to thank you guys for that.
And I appreciate you sending off those messages. And yeah, we are, if anyone's got any ideas, we're always open to them, but really the park staff and the road staff working together and the cul-de-sacs has made a big difference.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I certainly have gone to bat in the past for people on cul-de-sacs. It was mostly that they were third tier and they weren't happy about that. But I will say we've pleased one of our residents, which was a wonderful surprise and pleasure to me. Mr. McCartney is very pleased with what's been going on, and he is a hard critic. So again, thank you to your staff, Mr. Downey and Mr. Tree. It doesn't mean, though, that we can't always find efficiencies. And I just will speak to you offline about that. With respect to using vehicles that we had in our contract 5 years, extending them up to 10 years, is that we won't have to worry about the repairs to those vehicles, and we can be assured that they are in good working order? And I'm thinking mostly of noise and fumes.
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Mayor, we felt that there was no need to have vehicles so young or not that old, however you want to look at that, with regards to providing the maintenance. The town's vehicles themselves we run for about 10 years, and they do a fine job. The problem with asking for vehicles that are newer is that cost is carried directly onto the contract, right. And we don't believe that is necessarily reflective of the service that is provided, and that's really what we're paying for, is the service. And it's really up to the contractor to make sure that they have their vehicles in good shape and they have spare vehicles or whatever in order to provide that service. There's no reason that we should be paying a premium to make sure that they haven't got equipment breakdowns. They should be making sure they're maintaining their vehicles. If we call a park contract or we call a road contract, we don't ask for new vehicles or certain age vehicles in order to perform those works. We have an expectation that that contractor will have equipment that is in good working order, regardless of what how old it is. So I think it's going to be have a very positive impact with regards to the cost, with very little impact on the provision of service.
Thank you. That's great news. The last question is about the thaw rocks. Yeah, so that's very interesting. And it, my only concern was what was in the thaw rocks that would make them work better. but I satisfied myself that it's nothing that would hurt the environment or the water going to Lake Simcoe. So great. Thank you, Mr. Downey.
You're welcome. In fact, as you know, you were at the award ceremony. We got an award for reducing the amount of salt that we place on the roads from the Conservation Authority. So it's a great product, and it performs extremely well. But we were putting on way more than we needed to, and I think the report reflects that we went from 170 down to 100 pounds per kilometer.
Thank you. It's just that I wasn't familiar with magnesium chloride. So I'm glad to know that it's a harmless substance, as harmless as it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Downey, thanks for the report. I'm just going to echo Councillor Humphrey's comments, because I know last term we tried twice to increase our service levels. I think overall we were hearing a lot of negative feedback, and I got to say I agree. That's changed. I think the service has slowly become better. And I think our residents are happier for it, and we're creating a more safer environment right across the town, from making sure that the roads are clear and the sidewalks. So as was mentioned, there's always room to improve, and I know that you guys are continuously working hard at looking and finding those efficiencies and trying to provide the best possible service for the best possible price. And I think we're on our way definitely to getting there. So thank you for that. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Council, we will move to 8.3, which is debt financing for projects with 2021 debt authority. 1, that report number FIN 21-007 be received. 2, that the use of a construction line of credit up to the maximum value of $8.2 million to fund the Stronach Aurora Recreation Complex Gymnasium project during its construction be approved. 3, that up to a maximum of $8.2 million in long-term debt authority for the refinancing of the construction line of credit in the form of a 20-year debenture be issued upon the Sark Gymnasium project's substantial completion. 4, that $3.375 million in long-term debt authority for the financing of the construction of the Hallmark baseball diamonds in the form of a 20-year debenture be issued. 5, that council enact the Sark Gymnasium project's interim/long-term debt financing bylaw at a future council meeting. 6, that council enact the Hallmark baseball diamonds project's long-term debt financing bylaw at a future council meeting. And 7, that upon finalization of the Sark Gymnasium project's long-term financing plan, an informational report be provided to council which outlines the details of such, including interest rates and net cost of borrowing. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Council, any comments or questions? And before I go to those, I'd just like to remind Council, we are speaking to the debt financing, not the actual merits of the proposals. We've already done that through budget, and we'll continue to do that when other components come forward. Any comments or questions? None? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. 8.4, capital project number 14047, computer and related infrastructure renewal. 1, that report number CS 21-014 be received. And 2, that the condition of the approval of capital project number 14047, computer and related infrastructure renewal in the amount of $660,361 be lifted and the project proceed. Would anyone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Councillor Kim. Comments or questions on this item? Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, to you, Mr. Mayor, to I guess Michael. I did read in here that we're still going forward with recommending changing our laptops and computers every 3 to 4 years versus the life cycle of 6 to 7. Is that correct?
Mr. Malvina? Oh, okay, here you go.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct, Councillor Gilliland. In fact, that is what was recommended in the IT strategic plan that I know you voted on in late 2019.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I think that, you know, when we had these discussions around the table, that this had come up before, where we felt that, you know, 3 to 4 years was, you know, very, very short period of time to be owning a laptop, and the longevity of laptops could be extended. And, you know, with all those comments, and I know I wasn't the only one that felt that way, I was just surprised to see this come back exactly the same way without any of that consideration. Were there any conversations or considerations behind the scenes that occurred, and then you decided just to come back with the exact same recommendation, or am I missing something? Is there something different?
Mr. Malvina?
No, like I said, Councillor Gilliland, that was the recommendation from the Perry Group, which were the consultants that put together the technology strategic plan. We're just following their recommendations. They quoted it as an industry standard, and we like to follow industry standards.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I mean, I guess when, you know, council has comments and they may not necessarily agree with that, I would have hoped that maybe some of the feedback, you know, staff may make the decision to maybe align with the staff feedback. I think 6, 7 years, I don't think that's necessarily a bad length to be having a computer. 3 to 4 years, I still think that's very young. I believe that, yes, we do need to update, and I'm sure that, you know, some laptops might have, you know, outlived their life, but I certainly still don't agree with how quickly we need to turn this over. I'm not so sure how the rest of my colleagues feel, but I'm really disappointed that there wasn't some meet in the middle, whether it's, you know, 4 to 5 years or whatnot, but I'm still not in support of changing over our laptops every 3 years. Like, I just think that that's unnecessary.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just following on Councillor Gilliland's point, through you to Mr. Malvina. Mr. Malvina, forgive me, I don't remember if you were part of the budget conversations or not, but, you know, I mean, Councillor Gilliland's correct. When this came up for budget, many of us did question the rationale behind that industry standard, and we're looking for more information to validate that or to understand it better. I think that examples were given from various that work in industries that, you know, see laptops utilized longer than a 3 or 4 year period, even though for the most part, you know, laptops, at least in my field, you know, will go for more of a business laptop. It'll carry a 3-year warranty, but it's not unusual for it to be 5 years before it's cycled back out. And I think, at least for myself, I certainly was looking for more information. I've certainly done the research on my own and looked, and yes, there are lots of people that speak to industry standards, but, you know, forgive me for being skeptical when I see that these reports are being done by Intel and Dell and so forth, where they have a little bit of a stake in the game. But, you know, that's where I was hoping to see more of this information myself to validate it. You know, I tend to agree with Councillor Gilliland on this one that, you know, I'd like to see a little bit longer horizon and be 4 or 5 years, even though, yes, it was mentioned in the strat plan previously. I think that without that information or data, you know, I'm still struggling with it. For example, within the report, it talks about the risks. And it says that if we don't refresh the technology, you know, within that time frame, then, you know, increases our support costs to keep these machines running, both in real dollars spent and increased time taken by the IT service desk. That's great to stay within the report, but do we have any data or facts to validate that comment? Can you show me that, you know, by not refreshing our laptops every 3 to 4 years, that we've incurred additional costs as a result of that? You know, over the years through our budget process, you know, we've been challenging the operations team when it comes to vehicles and giving us information to validate, why we're cycling these out when we do and sort of the costs. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more information along that lines in this report as well to feel more comfortable moving that time frame up. I'm still hesitant to continue to support that ideology that it should be cycled every 3 to 4 years. Based on my limited experience, I'm thinking more 4 to 5 years, but is there any data that we have that can show the costs associated with keeping these laptops a little bit longer?
Mr. Malvina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any data to share with you right now, Councillor Thompson, but if you want, I can take that away.
Myself, I certainly would like to see a little bit more detail behind the recommendation to understand it better. I still am hesitant to adopt that 3 to 4 year ones, even though, yes, I've seen industry standard, but I can only go by my experience. I also have friends in the banking industry, and they're certainly not recycling their laptops on that schedule either, at least the ones that I know of. So again, any information that you can help me to understand why it's 3 to 4 years and what the costs we have been absorbing as a result of doing that. Because at the end of the day, and I mentioned this, I think, during budget time, to the best of my knowledge, staff primarily are using their laptops to operate Office, now Zoom and maybe Microsoft Teams and 365 and so forth. The capabilities of your laptop do not have to be, that significant to be able to run that kind of software. We're not talking about, graphic software. We're not talking about some of the other high-end pieces. I get the comment where it says that you got to run next gen, anti-mal software, but, I'm not too sure whether you really can't do that. I mean, my laptop that I'm talking to you on right now is almost 5 years old, and it's certainly, as far as I know, is able to manage just fine. But, this may be an isolated situation. So perhaps if there's an opportunity between this week and next week to provide a little bit of more information or background based on your experience, I would very much welcome that.
Well, I can tell you, oh, sorry. Did you want to go ahead, Tasha?
No. Oh, Ms. Van Leeuwen, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to add that we are not currently suggesting that we move to that cycle yet. That will be work that will be done over the next year through the IT Governance Committee to do all of that research, collect all the data, and then establish those standards. This is what we're currently looking at is replacing laptops that were purchased in 2015 and 2016. So we have not yet moved to that standard of refresh every 3 to 4 years.
Councilor?
Thank you. And I'm certainly comfortable with the replacement of those identified, as you said, were purchased in 2015 and 16. If in truth, they really need to be done. But, before we continue to see this at budget that says, let's accelerate to that cycle. Yeah, I'd love to see that more information, and, whether it comes next week or through the IT steering committee and gets presented at budget time again. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. And it's always a difficult conversation when you're talking about evergreening because you're doing a proactive work that sometimes doesn't seem necessary. And I can understand the feedback from my peers, but I do believe it's a risk management assessment that needs to be done. And I think Ms. Van Leeuwen spoke to that. So I think when you go back and you look at whose super users cannot risk any fault or any time off on their laptop, would be the ones that you want to keep your 3 to 4 life cycle. And then there's the ones that have different type of administrative use on the computer that could last maybe 5 or 6. So I think your life cycle management is what you want to look at and see what, these guys, we cannot, the solution architects or our engineers or, or whatever, they cannot afford a risk that we could put them under. And then there's others that we could afford a little bit of a risk, a couple of days off their computer. I think that's sort of how you, I think I look forward to that report. And I read it as such that you guys are looking at a standard, but that it had to be a review done. So I'm sure that assessment will come as per the strat plan. So I'm looking forward to that. I have been experienced with the computer for 5 years, and when you lose all your data, even when you think you saved it on a hardware and it's not there, it's a disaster. So I'm okay with the refresh. Maybe what you could add when you're doing that, what does it mean in terms of budget if we go 3 to 4 versus 5 to 6, or however we were doing it before, what that differential is in the capital assessment? Hopefully not too much. I don't like risking laptops. I've been there, and we have all been there, so I get it. But no, I'm pleased with this approach. In terms outside of this, the rest of the report's good. I look forward to it moving forward. And I know we we're going to talk about something, the next topic, so I'll get some positive feedback on that as well. But thanks. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the one question I'd like to ask, which I hope Mr. Maldino will take away, is, when you purchase a car, they say that you don't get the optimal number of years that you should own a car before you sell it is 7 years. So I'm wondering, from a laptop or PC perspective, whether there is an optimal number of years from just purely from a cost perspective, not necessarily from a usage, productivity perspective. And I know when you look at any kind of technology website, and they'll say 3 to 4 years is optimal. And certainly if money is no object, that is optimal for to be the most productive. But I think what's been shared around my fellow colleagues, and I think I'm in support of what all my colleagues have iterated thus far, is 3 to 4 years, just carte blanche throughout the corporations, sounds excessive. I know certain areas, and like planning, when you're running GIS and other more sophisticated software, you might need more RAM and memory. Same with finance, but there may be other departments that may not necessarily need the refresh that frequently. For me, I'm thinking 4 to 5 years is reasonable. I think 7 is probably extreme, and I tend to agree that that's far too long, especially when technological innovation accelerates each and every year. I think 7 years is excessive. But if we could take a department by department approach with respect to the refresh frequency, that'd be great. And if you can come back with some of those answers by council, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'd be leaning towards somewhere in the middle between 4 to 5 years or 4 to 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
May I say something?
Yeah, Mr. Malvini, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, councillors, thank you very much for your input. You've all obviously have a stake in this, and I really liked Councillor Kim's and Councillor Humphrey's approaches of going with what I would call a tiered approach, and that some people do need the 3 to 4. Maybe some people can do the 4 to 5. So I would certainly be more than willing to work towards a tiered type approach if that's acceptable with everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Malvini, will you be able to get a lot of this information that council has been asking for by next week?
I think so, yes.
So council, can I make a recommendation then? How about, and if the mover and seconder are agreeable to this, how about we just receive this at this point, and next week we can deal with this issue once we get some more information. Does that work for everyone? Councillor Thompson, did you say something? Because you were, okay, you were talking, we couldn't hear you. But all right, so the mover, Mr. Clerk, who were the mover and seconder?
Mr. Mayor, on that one, we have Councillor Humphreys and Councillor Kim.
Are both of you okay with that? We'll just receive it for now. Good, okay. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Council 8.5, Corporate Technology Strategic Plan Update. One, that report number CS 21-015 be received for information. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Humphreys, second. Councillor Thompson, comments or questions on this item? Councillor Humphreys, you have your hand up?
Hi there. Thank you so much to you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank our team on this report. I know that a lot of work has been done. In fact, a lot more than I had anticipated at this point. So I just wanted to thank the efforts. There's a lot of work being done. Sounds like a lot of culture changes, a lot of reorganization, a lot of just a lot of change in general. And I love the amalgamation of the departments being under one IT because it makes absolute sense. Sounds like all the right information is being funneled. And I noticed that there was sort of a kind of a cool report card attached to it. You know, status of the projects, red, yellow, and green, and we're looking pretty good. I don't have anything specific to call out in the document other than just my thanks to the team to keep up the good work and the progress, because I do see significant change. And I said I didn't expect it to be this far along. So good work to the team. And there's what I found quite interesting, just as a comment, is that it looks like we're changing technology and moving forward in every part of our organization, from finance to parks to planning, everywhere. So it's a lot to undertake. So I just wanted to thank you guys very much. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to think about this, nothing urgent, but if there's a way that I know that we have the sort of the long sort of KPI report card on green, yellow, and I didn't see any reds, which is good. But could there be sort of a high level dashboard? You may even have that already, where you're looking at, you know, how we're doing in each of our departments, how far we are in each of the implementations, and sort of our success rate in those types of things that are moving forward. I don't want you to spend a lot of time, but just kind of a really neat dashboard that can show us where we're going, when we're going to get, you know, how we're doing, and if did we get there, just a high level, because I think it's really important. And I also noticed you've also gone through to the telephony piece as well, which is a huge overhaul. And I don't know if I couldn't really understand if you made a decision and if you're going to UC or other types of solutions, but I'll make call Mr. Mulvena later and Ms. Van Leeuwen just to chat offline. Just curious in terms of what you've selected in terms of vendors and solutions, but it's very exciting. And this is one of the things I noticed is that you're not closing yourselves in, which is really important. You know, you don't want to get into a solution or a situation where you're shut in and you can't go anywhere from there. Here you're sort of going cloud-based, open services, the right way to go. So just want to thank you guys very much. I know it's a lot of work. And again, I was pleased to see the report.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions on this one? Call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gardner.
I can't resist the opportunity. I pretty much would say what Councillor Humphreys has just said, and I just want to thank Mr. Mulvena and staff for their work on this. It's an excellent report. Ms. Van Leeuwen, whoever was involved, it's an excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Mr. Mulvaney, thank you very much for showing up this evening. Council notices of motion. We have a few next week that we'll deal with, and we'll move to new business. We'll go around the room. Councillor Gardner, new business?
Not that I can think of at the moment, Mr. Mayor. Oh, excuse me. I will say that the skating party in the town park on Sunday went very well. And it was a gorgeous day. And I believe Councillor Gillen's family collected a lot of food for the food bank. And so I think it was a success. And also the music was great. So thanks.
Thank you. I hope everyone was wearing masks and physically distant.
Al- Almost everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, new business?
Just very quickly, I was going to mention the food drive as well, just to thank everybody who had donated. We had filled the truck 3 times and 3 trips to the food bank, which was fantastic, and raised over $300 in cash donations as well. So it was a very successful event. My daughter was very thrilled that she was able to help a lot of families out in need, especially during these times. So it was very successful, and it was great listening to that great music too. So it just turned out to be a great day, and it was sunny. So it was great. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about is I know that there was, and I guess this is for Mr. Mayor, there was an item on the regional council report about the 403, and I was wondering if you could shed some light a little bit on that. I know that there was an amended motion brought on by Regional Councillor Jackson to have the Toronto Region Conservation Authority to do a voluntary project review and have, the regional council support that, which is great. I think it's a great initiative to try and get them to do that, but it is voluntary. And I was just wondering if you can kind of like touch a little bit about on that meeting. And I know there was some mention as well about how this was already voted back in 2019, but I guess some of the pushback was that the region could have chosen to pause or to wait, just given the different kinds of situations that we're in with the climate change and such. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could shed some light on that, because the public has been asking some questions about that situation.
Councillor, do you mean 413 or 403?
413.
Thank you. So that discussion, if you're aware, that was a committee of the whole. There was some discussion around the table, but there will be discussion at council where there will be a decision made at that point. So I can update you at that point.
Okay, well, I guess I can, any residents who are interested, that there is a meeting that has been recorded. So if anybody's interested to see what kind of conversations were had, you can go to yorkregion.com and you can view, I think it's about 3 hours into the meeting, where you could hear some of the comments around the table and what they had, I guess, kind of agreed to pass at that time. And there was a bunch of delegates. I just kind of wanted to mention that because I know there was some people who were very passionate and wanted to know a little bit more about that outcome. And I want to thank everybody who did speak up about it. It is a big deal, and our environment matters, and times are changing, and we are turning into a more autonomous society. COVID has definitely changed the way that we work. Businesses are downsizing or reducing their assets. People are working more remotely, and we have an opportunity to actually maybe pause and have a little bit of an outlook. Although this is a provincial decision, I still think that the region could voice their opinion and at least state where they could stand to pause if so. And I encourage people to also reach out to their local MPs and MPPs. I know that was mentioned that some people were not by Ms. Jackson. However, I do understand there's a lot of claims that people did do some petitioning. So I commend you for that. So please continue to reach out, voice your opinion. Environment matters. And if there's opportunities to look at things in a different lens, we should definitely do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'll just reiterate, there's been no outcome. The vote's coming next week, just to remind all the residents.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Kim. No new business. Councillor Humphreys, new business.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. I've got new business. Is it an opportunity to state some personal items now as well, or not at these meetings?
Well, we have PSAs right
You
after.
do? Okay, so I've got 2 for that. Just a quick question. Maybe Ms. Van Loon can help me on this. It may not be appropriate, but to stop me if it is not. We're still getting residents wondering about the house on Edward Street. And I do understand that the builder's trying to build a home there, but cannot because the items on that property just aren't being moved. Any update there at all, or are we allowed to mention that at all? We are getting residents asking straight out, so it is pretty public.
Ms. Van Loren?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did reach out to our regional prosecutor to ask about when the court proceeding may commence again. I have not yet heard back, unfortunately. I will follow up again with another email.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't, yeah, from what I understand, there's hundreds of thousands of cases. I understand that. So thank you for trying. I really appreciate that. Other than that, there is one other item, but I may wait till next week. I just do a follow-up with one of the directors before, but that's it for new business.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, new business? Councillor Gallo, new business? No. Councillor Gardner, do you have your hand up for new business or public service announcement?
New business.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you know me. Once again, I got the public service and the new business mixed up. So, as I did my public service already, could I do my new business, which is really following on Councillor Gilliland's comments about the 413. And is this something that we as a council could discuss? It's got huge environmental implications, and a lot of residents are upset about this. I don't know if they've been in touch with you, but is this something as a council we can discuss and send our input through you to the region?
You're free to make any motion you'd like, council, as any councillors.
But it's being discussed. I was hoping that you might bring it to us. It is being voted on.
Yeah, you can let me know your comments.
Next week?
Yeah,
next week, the voting time?
Yeah, if you, by all means, you can give me a call and we can chat and you can let me know your comments, councillor, and I'll be more than happy to bring those comments as a whole from all of you to the table anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. Perhaps I'll just mention them next week under new business. We do have new business next week, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Public service announcements. So go around the other way. Councillor Gallo, public service.
Just to underline Black History Month, and there's lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff online. Do your best to join in on some of the events that are being organized.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson, public service announcement. No. Councillor Humphreys, public service announcement.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So two things, not very nice things. I just wanted to send out my condolences and heartbreak over losing a very prominent member of our community, Beverly Wood, who was a Citizen of the Year 2014. Wendy and I are both, Councillor Gardner, are both on a committee with her, Aurora Cares, and had to spend wonderful times with her over the years, many, many years, working with her on different fundraising events. Real heartbreak, a real loss to the community. And yeah, it's very, very shocking for me. I didn't even realize she was in the hospital. But yes, we are all going to miss and continue to miss Beverly, but much of the work that's going to be done by the Aurora Cares community will be much to her memory, and we'll continue to do all those great things with her in mind for sure. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for sharing that news with us, but it was really difficult. Also, just to the community in general, my peers, you know, COVID is a real thing. And I'm saying this from a different perspective. We lost a family member due to COVID, and they did all the right things, except for one time in a doctor's office, removed the mask for a moment. And that's the only place that could be traced back. And healthy, otherwise no underlying conditions. So I know it's difficult and it's very hard for people to wonder, you know, what are we doing with these masks? But please wear them. It'll save your lives and your families. So it's a big deal. It really is. So again, just wanted to mention that just because I think it's really important. The mayor continues to help us every day, remind us how we're doing. We're doing really well in our community. We want to open up safely. And I know we're going to get there. It's just we need to do the right things until we get there. And there was one other, and of course, Councillor Gallo mentioned Black History Month. I just wanted to mention once a month, you'll see it from the Aurora Black community. It's not part of the new committee that's been established, which, by the way, have done an amazing job. And on our website, there's all kinds of great things that are happening this month for Black History Month. But they also do a feature film. And what's so incredible about this feature film is Anelia Pekia. She's part of the International Film Festival and works very close with the library, hosts the event, and it's become really an amazing event that our residents are starting to really enjoy. So when they come out, if you have an opportunity to watch a movie and have a great discussion, it's just been a really fun thing to do, either on a Saturday night or a Friday night Zoom. So it's been really great. And then last item, again, we talked about it, but was wonderful on the weekend and Family Day. And Councillor Gilliland, I feel bad. I missed the timing. I got there at 2:30, so I missed the time to donate. But we did bring our food donations as well. That from there we missed the truck, so wanted to apologize. But thank you to your daughter for doing that. That's amazing and a lot of fun for the residents. But great job done by staff. I'm telling you, parks, you guys rock it. I mean, all our staff does, but what happens in these tough times, like we can go ahead and do these types of events, it means a lot to the residents. So I just wanted to say thank you to staff for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gartner, public service announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to congratulate the town and also the library on their celebration of Black History Month. And it is very sad about Beverly Woods. So in the last year, we've lost two very important women, Jen Friedman and Beverly Wood. And it's just, our community was so fortunate to have people like that and continues to have people like that. And they need to be appreciated. With respect to the celebration at the park on Sunday, a couple of us have said the music was great, but we did not mention that it was David Hurd who put this together, and he did a wonderful job and he had a wonderful time. So I guess that's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, public service announcement.
Thank you. I also want to echo comments about Beverly Wood and Jan as well, and also Evelyn Buck. We've lost quite a few wonderful women who have done so much for our community. I also wanted to congratulate the winners of our Cabinet Fever Reliever Photo Contest. Thanks, staff, for holding that. Some fantastic photos. I have seen a lot of it on social media, and it's really great to see everybody getting out there and finding some new talents within themselves, and Town of Aurora putting on this contest. So good job, absolutely fantastic. I hope we get to do this again, and it's something we can repeat. If you are looking for something to do, I know that we're all feeling cooped up and we have our own cabin fever. You can go to the Town of Aurora website and just go into the search bar. What are you looking for? And just type in things to do, and you'll pop up the rec page, and there's a whole plethora of stuff going on. There's videos of how to cook and projects and stuff. So I think it's just great that we have that resource, because I know we're kind of all going a little squirrely inside. And also look to the library and the culture center or our theater groups, and they're all offering something that's great. So I just wanted to kind of remind people that those tools are there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kim, I already asked you, right? I think you jumped on my screen. That's why I'm asking. Okay. Yeah, and I'm just going to echo about Beverly. She did do a lot for our community, and especially for the vulnerable members in our community. Extraordinary lady, and her presence is going to be profoundly missed by everyone in our community. So thank you, Councillor Humphries, for bringing that up. And I did want to just touch briefly about Thursday, we will have a special educational session for regional council. We'll be meeting with Dr. Kurji. Once again, as everyone knows, February 22nd, we will be moving out of the stay-at-home order. We're not 100% sure at this point what color zone we will enter. It will probably be gray or red, but I can tell everyone here that Dr. Kurji is advising regional council and is looking at the science table when he goes and sits down with all the chief medical officers of health, that he's advising that York Region move into the red zone come February 22nd. He's basing this on the declining numbers. We are being cautious because of the variants that are appearing, but he feels confident that we can maintain the safety for our communities while entering the red zone and allowing our economy to begin to open up. We'll see what happens. Ultimately, it is a provincial decision. But it is encouraging when your chief medical officer is using science and the data, factual data, to make his decisions and his advice to regional council. And so we'll see where the province falls with that and what decision that they make. And we'll probably hear that Friday after the cabinet meeting. So sometime in Friday, we'll have an understanding of where we will be as York Region for a zone. So just want to inform all of you, and I will update you as soon as I'm aware of what zone we will be entering in as well. So with that, council, I will call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.